Welcome to Tapping Wisdom. I'm Sue Padernacht, and I'm delighted to welcome Gabe Charbonneau, who is a family physician at Providence in Stevensville, Montana. He is the co-founder of an organization called Medicine Forward, a serial entrepreneur in health technology, and founder of Fight Burnout, and a self-described burnout warrior. I met Gabe at his pre-conference half-day session at a healthcare burnout conference a couple of months ago. His session was called Creating a Social Movement to Fight Burnout, and he gifted all of us with these fabulous t-shirts, which I wear often, especially at the gym. It's a great workout t-shirt. And that conference, being at UCLA, was a great place for those of us in Southern California to come and hear his message. So I invited Gabe to join us and to talk about his burnout warrior movement and through a leadership perspective. So Gabe, would you tell us a bit more about yourself and your backstory?
I'd love to, Sue, and thank you for the kind introduction. And before I get into my story, I just want to share I love that you wore your Fight Burnout shirt to this interview today, and everything that you said I've heard a few times before, that people love wearing it to the gym. I love wearing it to the gym too. There's something about it that makes you feel empowered, and that's one of my most favorite things about it. Is it makes people feel like we can do something and we're part of something bigger than ourselves. And so anyway, I'm super happy to hear that you wear it, and like wearing it working out. Like, what's more powerful than that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So my story and how I got here, um like you mentioned, I'm a family practice doctor in rural Montana, and I had a peak burnout experience that I shared at the workshop that Sue and I were at, right out of residency, pretty much before I knew what burnout was. We didn't really talk about burnout. And there certainly wasn't as much research about it that was on my radar, but my work experience was definitely burnout. Just a super intense environment. We were very under-resourced. And we had a loan repayment contract that if you left early, you would have to pay it back double, which resulted in basically like our administration knowing that they had us over a barrel and that they could do whatever they wanted to us, and we wouldn't leave. So that created a pretty toxic work environment, and really got me thinking a lot about wanting something better for me and for other people and people that I care about. So I and my wife, who's also a family doctor, survived that experience. And during it, one of my survival techniques was actually seeing what we could do to make it just a little bit better. So I had a tech background already before becoming a doctor, and one of my strategies was anything that we could do that would just take the edge off of this difficult work. And so pretty early on, I started tinkering with the tools at hand. Some of them were voice tools like Dragon voice dictation, and really pushing the envelope with what all could that do. It was a pretty neat tool. What could it do besides just transcribing your voice? And it turns out you could make these little basically mini computer programs where it would do several things for you with a voice command. And which was important, because a lot of the time as a doctor, you're spending not only time thinking about how do I think as a physician, but also how do I get the computer that's in front of me, that's very cumbersome, to do the things that I want with the least amount of effort.
This was all
That's
before AI, right? And
This
chat
is well
GPT,
before,
way
yes,
before
this is
that.
well before AI.
Yeah.
This is kind of brute force, like me fighting back against the computers that are like creating all these like pop-up windows that are taking too long to load. I mean, it would take sometimes 30 seconds to load a screen for us to review a note or some labs, and you'd have to click multiple buttons just to get there. I mean, this was a really old system. And so being able to create these little mini apps, I guess you can call them, or macros, was a lifesaver for me. And so that was the beginning. And then we got out of that job and moved to rural Montana, which was a really good career move, a really good family move. My wife's family is all from close by, and so our kids could be close to family and grow up in a nice place, good school, a great environment. But this theme of burnout would keep kind of poking its head up, and so when we got here, that was about the time that there was the big push for electronic medical records. And with my background of my tinkering and interest in computers, pretty quickly I made friends with another doctor who was also interested in how can we work like doctors, not like computer engineers. And we started challenging each other for who could make the best tools that would really like let you think like a doctor and do more work like that rather than the computer sort of driving you around. And then that turned into us teaching some classes, some traveling to do consulting. And we both realized fairly early on that we didn't want to be consultants that were just continuously traveling around to teach these things, that there had to be some way that might scale to share the things we were excited about. When we had that question, one idea was, why can't these EMRs not just have a button that a doctor has control over that does exactly what they wanted it to do, rather than what the
EMR being electronic
wants?
medical records for those who are not in
Yeah.
the medical space. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Electronic medical records. And in order to do that, you'd have to know something about building software, which even though I was a computer guy, I had never written any significant computer programs before that time. So I decided I should learn a software language and dove into learning Python with this wonderful course called Learn Python the Hard Way, which sounds worse than it is. It's actually a brilliant class.
Yes, it sounds terrible.
It's not super hard. The hard way basically means that they don't, they take away some of the like helper things that sort of sometimes make it so people don't learn the fundamentals of programming. And so you just, you take away all of these things and just start totally from scratch. So it's really a great foundation for learning basics about programming, and then all the way up to being able to make something.
And all this while you were, you were a family, a primary care physician in rural Montana.
Right. Yes, of
Right.
course.
Okay. Just clarifying. Yeah. Like you weren't
Yeah.
doing this full time. This was your side gig.
This was my side gig, and it captured my imagination. And we were asking this question of, well, could you make a tool for doctors that would enable them to do what they wanted to do and to practice more like human physicians? So that's a big part of my story. And we were making software, and we thought, this is really cool. People love it. We love it. It's quite effective. And but there was a huge challenge, which is that for anyone who's tried to do innovation in the medical space, it is incredibly difficult to get new ideas into systems. And especially, you mentioned like while being a doctor at the same time. Like, I wasn't going to quit being a doctor. I trained to be a physician. I want to be a physician. It's my life. And so that was a hard part of the journey, was realizing that that we had made this thing that we thought could have so much potential, and we saw so much potential, but really like having it be that disruptive of the system was just a huge challenge. So we actually kind of put this project on the back burner. It's actually now available open source for anyone who wants to try it.
Can you give us that website or that?
Yeah, the app is called Swiftwire, and you can download it on GitHub, where they have free software and open source software. And it takes a little bit of understanding how it works to get it going, but certainly I'm happy to talk to people if they're interested about it, because it's I still use it every day. So I've had this interest in like what ways can technology really humanize medicine, and also the workplace of being a doctor. How can we make it an enjoyable, sustainable place for people? Because most people know it isn't. The trends of burnout are quite concerning, which is why we met at the Burnout Symposium. It's a big enough problem that there are now conferences to talk about this problem and what are we going to do to make it better.
Indeed. So that was your healthcare tech journey in order to create technological systems to address to address burnout, so doctors can be more, at the bedside or face to face in the clinic, and actually speak with people and spend more time with the patient and the patient's families, as opposed to like having to spend at least 50% is the last statistics that I saw,
Yeah.
actually like sitting there and typing away. So
Yep.
because they don't have time and they won't remember if they delay it, between patients. So
Right.
tell us a bit then how that transitioned into the founding of Fight Burnout and Medicine Forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try and tell this story in a somewhat linear fashion. So I had been thinking about these issues for a long time. I've been thinking about, what does it mean to be a doctor? What does it mean to be a patient? These human interactions. What is the role of technology? The trends about where things are going. And there was so much frustration, but there was also so much goodness, like so many good human beings I met along the way. One of the groups that really inspired me is when we would go and do consulting with our tech. I would find doctors who had started in their careers with so much passion for medicine, and it was just going away. And this thing in front of us, this computer, was a huge part of why it was going away. But the spirit was there still. I knew it. And sometimes it was people that I had actually known, like when we trained in residency, and then I went back to try and help some of these people who had given me the gift of teaching when I was a student. And now they're burned out with this computer that's becoming more and more a part of our lives. And this vision of how many good people, especially good physicians and others who are trying to help make things better, just gave me this idea that I wanted to somehow symbolically represent my belief that if we could come together, and I do believe that we will find ways to do that, people are, that we can overcome some of these very hard challenges. So that's the shirt that, Sue, that you're wearing. It's a phoenix representing people coming together to do these things, and the rod of medicine, the rod of Asclepius, pulling it out of the flames, is us finding a way forward and finding a path. And those words, fight burnout, I had just kind of come up with well, what is this? What's the symbolism that I want? What's the simplest thing that I can distill this down to? And burnout was this trend that I was very concerned by, that just kept bothering me enough that I was like, okay, burnout is the thing, burnout is the enemy. And fighting burnout with this shirt feels like a way to feel empowered. And it feels like a way to feel a part of something bigger than yourself. I had a friend who was doing a project over the holidays called the 12 Days of Health IT Christmas, Healthcare Information Technology Christmas. And he asked if people had any ideas. I said, well, I made this shirt. I'm thinking about what I want to do with it. And I think what I want to do is send it to people who are doing things that feel hopeful to me, that are inspiring, that are trying to make a difference in burnout. And I'd like to send them a shirt and write a little personal handwritten thank you note. And let's see what happens with that. And I had no idea where that would go, but it turned out that actually people really loved that idea. And I spent a huge amount of time just basically through Twitter and the internet, like looking for people who were doing interesting things, and then saying like, hey, I love what you're doing. I made this t-shirt. Here's some other people who are interesting wearing this t-shirt. I'd love to send you one, and thank you for what you're doing. And it just turned into this thing that sort of took on an energy of its own. That was very exciting. As I was giving away these shirts, one of the people who had inspired me was Eric Topol, who's a famous physician author. And Eric had written a couple of books. The most recent one was Deep Medicine, about the future of humans and AI. And it was a book that was of interest to me on a number of levels. But what I found myself really connecting with was that he was really speaking about the importance of standing up for our humanity in medicine, both for doctors and patients. And that was the part that just resonated so deeply. From the moment that I started reading and hearing those words, it was like he was speaking my language. He was giving voice to things that I had felt. And I was like, I need to get him a shirt. I don't know how that works, but I need to get him a shirt. So I actually had a friend who'd had Eric on a podcast, and I thought, well, maybe he'd like to give him a shirt. So I asked him, and he said, no, you just need to write to him directly. So I did, with no expectation. I thought he probably gets hit up with stuff all the time. This will go into spam for sure, into his spam folder. But he wrote back right away and was very interested and offered to get on the phone, and we had this great conversation. And he told me he was writing something, in his words, to stoke things, which I didn't know exactly what that meant, but it was on the topic of all of these things about being human and technology and standing together. And anyway, so a few months later, he writes and says, hey, this is kind of a pre-release version of this thing that's coming out in the New Yorker tomorrow, arguing doctors need to organize. We need to stand together. We need to speak up for patients. We need to speak up for a better future. What do you think? And I read it and loved it and said, I think this is great. And he said, cool. I think you need to help lead this. And I said, wait, I'm definitely way too introverted. Plus we hardly know each other. Like that's never going to work. Well, it's almost 4 years in now. And I have been leading this. Eric and I co-founded this organization called Medicine Forward, and the whole principle is disrupting the status quo that's not working and bringing doctors together in a grassroots way to advocate for a better future. And so that's what we've been working on. That's how we met, me telling that story. And so we're 4 years in. We have about 400 physician members. We've been working on building the right kind of foundation so this organization can have impact and be sustainable and collaborate with the best kinds of people that also want to be part of making this better world. And I mean, that's part of what draws me to you, Sue, is I know that's what you want to do as well. So that's what I'm doing. And right now we're right in the middle of working on a grant proposal to try and get some funding to help the organization sustain. We've been largely relying on a lot of volunteer efforts from doctors and other people. And it's time for us to make ourselves a little bit more formal, but still keep our fighting disruptive spirit.
Absolutely. And this is a nonprofit,
Yes.
yeah, because the people who I know out there who are venture capitalists are like, gee, I wonder if he wants to go through, some funding.
No, not
So
at all.
no,
This is anti-VC. Yes.
this is a nonprofit.
Yep.
So tell us yours and Eric's vision. We know what the mission is, but tell us what your vision is, and whether you're looking to impact the corporate world and policies and systems, if you're looking to impact legislatively at the state and national level. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, so first of all, because burnout is what we'd call a wicked problem. There's not a simple if you just do enough of this, you're going to get to the solution. It's highly complex. There's so many moving parts and pieces, so many incentives and so many interests that we know that there's not one thing that's going to work. So part of our strategy is to continue to build this. Part of our vision, I guess, since that's the question, is to bring together a network of people, of change leaders who are passionate about bringing forward this better future, people who really align with our same values, that we need to stand up for human interests, and we need to push back on some of the incentives that are not working for us, the things that are causing us to have dismal cost for life expectancy in our country, horrible outcomes on health equity. We know that there's potential to do better, but our incentive systems are really not working. And as far as how we get there through this journey, I've realized, and I think Eric too, that there's really two paths. There's this outer path of what are we going to do to have impact on the system through advocacy, on policy, through innovation, through building networks. But there's also this inner pathway of doctors growing and learning how to be change leaders ourselves. How do we need to grow and evolve to be part of the change that we want to see? Yeah, It's so that's really my place where I am right now, is recognizing that it's both things. It's external action, but it's also internal change and growth.
In other words, somewhat adjusting the culture of medical providers, from and if you didn't say this explicitly, but from my research, a lot of physicians are feeling commoditized,
Mhm.
by a lot of the external environmental systems, but also the internal environmental systems, right? Like
Yes.
Surgeon General Vivek Murthy said, burnout manifests in people, but it originates in systems. And as you said, there's multiple systems at play. So to what extent can we change the culture from
Yeah.
feeling victimized right
Yes.
now, like it's and that the system isn't just, right? There's a lot of injustice that's happening based on expectations, based on behavioral treatment, based
Yeah.
on status and stature, based on reimbursements. I mean, a lot of those things, right?
Yep.
So kind of adjusting mindset, right? So if I could channel Carol Dweck for a second, right, and her book Mindset. So how can we go from kind of a woe is me fixed mindset,
Yep.
right, to okay, we need to pivot to a growth mindset. What can we do about that? How can we get
Yes.
agency? So
Yes.
yeah,
Dude, you
tell
said
us a
that
little bit
so
about that. Yeah.
you said that so well, and that's exactly right. And I've been there. When I was describing that first job out of residency, I very much felt like a victim of the system. I did not feel empowered. Um, and it took me a long time to get to a place where I do feel empowered. And it still, when certain things happen that feel unjust and unfair, I do have a moment of feeling like, hey, this shouldn't be like this. Somebody needs to wake up and realize it just needs to change. But I've gotten a lot better at not keeping myself in that place of victim mindset, and pretty quickly shifting to, okay, what's my role in trying to help? What's my role in trying to make it better? What's my best life going to be? And that's a unique answer for many people. What is the life that they need? Some people, leaving medicine is the answer. There's not another viable answer for them. That's not the case for me. I want to be a physician. I want to believe in a future where being a doctor is a desirable thing. And I'm in primary care. It's oftentimes one of the hardest workplaces, where it's under-resourced, and a lot of things get dumped in the lap of primary care doctors. They're not paid as well as other physicians. So it's easy to feel like a victim, with more and more bureaucratic tasks added onto your plate. But I do believe that it's also that high functioning, high quality primary care should be the backbone of a healthcare system that actually works. And you mentioned this thing about commodification. I think that is absolutely one of the big trends that has been going in the wrong direction, is seeing what should be a relationship of care get turned into a widget type commodity. And that model just doesn't work for health, at least not in my experience. So um, I got so excited about that. I'm not sure I answered your whole question, but it's definitely near and dear to my heart about the why this matters so much. I think any of us who have experienced really good care, where we really did have a connection with our doctor or with our care team, knows what the potential for a good interaction can be. But we also know that we're in a place right now where we've got a lot of work to do to get to a place where that happens more consistently.
Yeah, and I think part of your solution with Eric is creating this social movement, uh,
Yes.
and by saying to ourselves, what can I do? There are things that we can do in the immediate moment, but we can't move an entire system by ourselves, without agency, and without support, and without, some momentum at a group level, whatever
Yes.
that group is, whether it's a group of 10 or 10,000 or a million, right? Whatever,
Yep.
that is. So there are definitely skills and abilities at the individual level dealing with immediate things to have agency. And there are things that need to happen at the broader system level that can't be done without a group of people, kind of coming
Yep.
together and identifying the core issues and coming up with creative solutions that are win-win, right? For the patient, for the providers, for the organization, etc. Right? It's not an us versus them, fight the
Right.
man kind of thing,
Yep.
right? It's okay. We've been at this experiment for almost 20 years now, 15, 20 years of
Yes.
adjusting healthcare. We've got some good data to see what's worked and what's not. Here's what we need to do to make that
Yes.
pivot.
Yeah, and that's right. And the victim mindset and the us versus them thing, it's so easy to go there. And like I said,
Oh yeah.
I have been there and I can still go there. I'm just trying to stay there for less and less amounts of time, because what it really does is robs us from our power to make a difference. If you're spending your energy being stuck in that spot, um, it doesn't feel good and it's not part of positive change.
Yeah.
Versus that's what draws me to this group, to Medicine Forward, is I do feel there is an energetic potential for us to make a difference. So I mean, some of the things that we've done already feel very meaningful. So we've been doing advocacy to make a difference in prior authorization, which is again, maybe for your audience, if that's not a hot topic for them, that's the process by which the insurance when your doctor writes a prescription for something or orders a test, says you have to jump through this hoop before we will approve that thing. And prior authorization has become more and more burdensome lately, and has become this thing that has really it takes like 15 hours a week on average per doctor.
Oh my.
It's
Wow.
taking away from time we already don't have, and certainly takes away, we already don't have enough time to spend with patients making human connections. But if you have something like that, it's even worse. And like 85% of them that are appealed get overturned. So it's people will try and tell you it's an evidence-based practice. It's not. It's a business optimizing practice, and we need to find a way to make the business work without this externality of taking this toll on people inside the system. And so part of why I'm sharing this story is that I and the others who have been working on this prior auth advocacy project do feel a lot of agency. We have been able to build relationships with quite interesting people that have wanted to partner on this. The American College of Physicians, they're the second largest doctors organization. So we put on these national town hall events with them. We're this small little disruptive upstart, and we partnered with a large group who represents many physicians who are involved in advocacy. We learned about how to understand policy. And so there's a policy already in Congress that's about improving prior authorization, and we were part of advocating to try and help get that pushed through, and to help see if we can shape it to be even better, to stand up for what it needs to do. And each of those things is like a learning experience. It's not easy, but it does feel important, because we're tying it all back to this. How do we reclaim a voice, a sense of agency, a sense that we can make a difference? How do we become part of a change? And yes, and so that is what it's all about. And part of what I'm so excited about with Medicine Forward is really helping anyone who wants to be part of this and joins with us, to find that path of agency for themselves, because it looks different for different people. There's a lot of people that don't care about prior authorization, and they probably shouldn't be involved in prior auth advocacy, but everybody needs to feel like they're a agentic being, that we can do things, that we are powerful, that we can make a difference, that our voice matters. And I think there is a path of reclaiming and refinding agency for all doctors, and that's in the best interest of all of us.
Agentic being, that's such a great term. What else are you seeing on the horizon that Medicine Forward is going to be addressing? And what else are you kind of envisioning it might get involved in?
Well, so in the near term, so this is a great question. So one of the things that we have to really do as a small organization is to really stay focused and not to spend too much time jumping around on different topics. So in the short term, prior authorization really is our signature issue. And we think that by staying focused on that, that's a really important part of our strategy. As we build this coalition of people and nurture basically almost like a startup within startups kind of mentality. If there's enough energy of a group of people that wants to work on a project or a topic, then we absolutely want to consider supporting that if it aligns enough with our values, our core values. But as far as as far as things on the horizon, I mean, Chat GPT is changing everything. So AI is this exponential curve that I think I am just starting to realize how fast that is taking off and how much that's going to impact us as physicians. So we really, really are paying attention to that. I am a huge believer that the United States is overdue to have universal coverage for people. It does not make any sense to me that we don't. So that's not a new thing, but I'm starting to be more vocal about my belief that it is just not right for us as a country to not figure that out. So I think that's a huge issue that we need to address as a society. I think thinking about what are we optimizing for in healthcare, because unfortunately right now, many of our companies, including the best ones, are optimizing for profit. We should be optimizing for care, right? Like that's, if you want health, we should be optimizing for health and for care, but we are optimizing for profit. And I don't know how to fix that. That's part of the wicked problem. I don't know how to fix it, but I know what I want.
Yeah, understood. And so I can hear, the C-suite saying, yeah, well, without profit, we don't have, we don't have healthcare. Right. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of it's a
Yep.
bit of a circle, right? And mutual dependency.
Yep.
So, again, we've come this far with this model, right? The
Yep.
corporatization. Some things have worked and other things haven't. So what can we do now in this moment in time to identify the core issues and address them without
Yeah.
sacrificing what was good about going in that direction?
Well, I do. Yes. And I do have a challenge to people who are in the C-suite because not everybody believes that that profit has to be the top priority in order to be successful as a business. And there are plenty of examples where people do have a mission and a vision that's the most important part, and the finances support that mission and vision. And in fact, I'm thinking about a good friend of mine who started a rural primary care practice in Oregon, and it's very mission driven. So they have 4 pillars that were based on parts of the quadruple aim, but basically the top priority of their organization is employee happiness and well-being, and financial sustainability is their 4th priority. They are profitable and they're growing. So my challenge to any executive who says that the money has to be the top priority is that I don't believe that. I just don't believe it. I think that you can be a successful business and put people and bigger, more important issues as your top priority.
Well, I think the good news is that when we effectively put patients and employees first, the money will come. Right?
Yes.
Because think of how expensive it is, when there are medical errors. Think of
Yeah.
how expensive it is every time a physician
Yep.
or a nurse leaves, and now you've got to use traveling nurses, which are very expensive, right?
Yep.
So the cost of doing business now, is exponentially high,
Right.
because of some of these other issues. So
Yep.
that's why I'm saying there might be some ways for it to be both and
Yep.
there's a lot of cases out there in the health world that have said when you put, and they'll say customers instead of patients, but when you put customers and employees first, the money will come.
Yep.
So, so
It's
why
time to
wouldn't
do that in
that,
healthcare,
right?
isn't
Why
it?
wouldn't that work in healthcare? And that can be
Yep.
reinvested, right, in people and capital and, and equipment and all that kind of stuff. So it can
Yep.
create kind of a win-win approach. So it does, but it does, it is a different mindset,
Yep.
and it requires different kinds of minds at the table. So I appreciate, you creating
Yes.
this nonprofit and this ecosystem that is open to, all kinds of thinkers who are curious about this from multiple perspectives, because there are so many factors that go into burnout in healthcare that
Yep.
it is going to be a heavy lift, and I'm all in.
Well, Sue, I appreciate that very much. And I don't want anyone who might be in the C-suite listening to this to think, oh gosh, this guy just hates executives, because that is not true at all. In fact, this both and thing that you said, I think is really, really important. And maybe I'll just share a little bit on my own journey. So I've been in coaching for a while, but specifically doing a program for the last 6 months called Positive Intelligence. And a big part of it is catching yourself when you have negative thought patterns and intercepting those and choosing a different path using tools like mindfulness. And one of the tools is really directing towards empathy. And when I started the program, I did not have a lot of empathy for executives high up in the healthcare system, because I thought, well, if you have control over the system and can pull on these levers, how can you let a workplace like this persist? But I've realized that I have my limited view of how things work, and my belief is that my own empathy for people kind of in all different stages and places in the healthcare system is increased doing this coaching. And my belief is that that can only help us get to a better place if we have more empathy for each other across all different levels of organizations. And I'm reminded of a story. I had a friend who's a doctor who shared his dad worked for an aluminum company. And early on in his career, the executives and the workers, regular workers, lived in the same community and spent a lot of time together and were friendly with each other, would have kids in school together, and it was a very positive experience. And somewhere along the line, the executives started building houses kind of farther away from where the work was and living in a different community. And there became this disconnect of those relationships, and it completely changed what it was like. And no longer did people feel like they had this relationship and this kind of like personal responsibility and accountability to each other. And so this us versus them thing started to build, and it created this much more negative experience. And I just thought, like, well, if that can happen that way and go in the wrong direction, why can't that happen and go in the right direction, where there's this movement for saying, like, I want to build relationships that are positive with people throughout the place that I work, from the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. And I do think a lot of the innovation that needs to happen has got to be bottom up. It's just saying that we don't accept this current way where there's this us versus them, a lot of victim mindset, a lot of stuckness, but we really are all a part of this system together. And if we hope to fix it, we've got to find ways to work together.
Absolutely. And it's also, very, it's very validating to come together with other people who have had similar experiences and similar reactions, because it makes people think, I'm not alone and I'm not crazy. Right.
Yeah.
So other people are sensing the same thing that I am.
Yeah.
Gabe, with the time that we have left, what have I not asked that would be helpful to know or for you to share?
Boy, you know, you're getting to know a little bit about my brain. I could probably share way too many ideas. I'm thinking that maybe I instead share with you my things that I guess I just are my takeaways that I would love
Yeah,
for people to leave with.
yeah, that was going to be
Um,
my next question anyway. Okay, so let's talk
yeah,
takeaways.
I don't think there's any major thing that you left out, Sue. So I would rather skip ahead and because the messages that I think are most important from my experience are one, I think there's both an inner and an outer path to getting to somewhere better. And the outer path is the change we're going to make in the outside world through things like advocacy or changing systems. And the inner path is the path of growth and change in ourselves. And it's the place where we have the most leverage. And I think that I think it's the understanding that there are the two paths, but they're not completely separate from each other, that they go together. This is actually a huge part of Medicine Forward strategy is recognizing that we want to make an impact in the outside world, but we're going to have to change some things and learn some things ourselves to be best equipped to do that, and to come together to do that. So the inner and the outer path, it's not a either or, it's not a me as an individual or them as the system. It is both and integrating those things is incredibly important. The other thing is I think that for part of the antidote to burnout and part of why I'm excited to be part of a group that is working on this is it really helps to find a tribe of people that you feel speaks to you. And so if Medicine Forward is it for you, we'd love to have people join. But if it's not, I think it's critically important to as humans be part of something that you believe in, that connects you with other humans that also care about similar things that you do. So finding your tribe and using that as a part of a way to get unstuck is, I think, really important.
And what a
And
perfect segue. So how would people find you and Medicine Forward? And we'll put some of that
yeah,
those on the screen for people.
yeah. Oh, we're easy to find. So medicineforward.org is the website for Medicine Forward. And you can find me through medicineforward.org. I'm also quite active on Twitter. That's probably one of the best places to find me and get in touch. My Twitter handle is at Gabriel Dane, Dane like a Great Dane.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so that will be easy ways to find me.
Okay, and of course on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, Dr. Gabe Charbonneau, you have been very inspiring, and it's been so informative to just listen to your story and your journey. And I mean, you clearly have, gone through both the fixed and the growth mindset in this, and you've, kind of put the gas pedal all the way down to the floor. And now, if you're an EV driver like me, the electric vehicle drive pedal all the way down to the floor and going full speed ahead on making both internal and external environmental changes, as well as helping individual providers have agency, both in terms of their own individual growth, but also collectively as a group to just come together, form connections,
Yes.
that are also very healing, and that people can take action, as well as just bring that solace, that when they are continuing to deal with frustrations, that this doesn't have to be a forever, and there can be some ways out and ways through.
Yes.
So thank you so much. This has been Tapping Wisdom. I'm Sue Padernacht, and thank you for joining us.